Hello, and welcome to today's training session on cross-cultural communication. The face of business has evolved significantly in recent years thanks to demographic changes, advances in technology, better transportation, and shifts in political policies throughout the world. As a result of those changes, it is not unusual to find businesses with a multitude of teams, customers, and clients that are made up of members from different cultures. Diversity in the workplace can bring new communication challenges and highlights the importance of cross-cultural communication. For AIST events, in particular, we don't only have to consider how to maintain and improve cross-cultural communication with our colleagues, but it is also an important part of our day-to-day job, working with overseas speakers, venues, and other international stakeholders. In today's training session, I will begin by providing an overview of diversity in the workplace, explain what cross-cultural communication is, and also look at the benefits both can bring to AIST. I will then dive deeper into cross-cultural communication, focusing on three topics. First, communicating with people from diverse backgrounds. Secondly, communication protocols. And then finally, negotiation strategies. By the end of this training session, I hope you will be able to confidently and effectively communicate when dealing with cross-cultural situations, and by doing so, build stronger relationships and gain a better understanding of how to communicate and negotiate with people from different backgrounds. So to start, what exactly is workplace diversity? Workplace diversity is understanding, accepting, and valuing differences between people, including those of different races, ethnicities, genders, ages, religions, disabilities, and sexual orientations. It also looks at people with differences in education, personalities, skill sets, experiences, and knowledge bases. So what are the benefits of diversity in the workplace? Diversity can bring a number of benefits to a company. Having a diverse group of employees with different backgrounds and skills can help generate fresh ideas, bring different perspectives, increase innovation, creative thinking, and problem solving. Studies have found that diverse teams can also result in increased profits. A 2015 McKinsey report called Why Diversity Matters found that out of 366 public companies that ranked in the upper quartile of racial and ethnic diversity in management were 35% more likely to have financial returns in their industry. As well-known industry analyst Josh Berzin states, companies that embrace diversity and inclusion in all aspects of the business statistically outperform their peers. Okay, so the benefits of diversity are obvious, but what the challenge can be is finding the best ways to encourage and increase diversity in the workplace. AIST will need to commit to a long-term change and ensure diversity becomes part of the organisational mission. So what initiatives can AIST undertake to help improve diversity within the organisation? Number one, improve gender equality. AIST has long been an advocate for gender equality. Currently, the association is made up of 65% females. And of the 8 board members, 5 are women, which is great in comparison to the wider financial industry. Although gender equality is not such an issue within AIST's employees, it is a bit of an issue when it comes to the ratio of male to female speakers at our conferences and events. Being part of the financial sector, it is very common the majority of the speakers are male. Our major conference this year, CMSF, had 58 males and 32 female speakers. So in order to try and improve this in the future, for 2021, CMSF, we aim to have a 50-50 ratio of male to female speakers at CMSF. Another way to increase diversity would be to introduce blind screenings. In order to reduce the likelihood of unconscious bias, AIST could introduce blind screenings. This would mean removing information such as name, gender, religion, or socio-economic background during the resume screening process. This process would help to minimize unconscious bias around age, sex, race, as well as academic education, and just focus on the candidate's skills to do the job. We could also focus on becoming more LGBTI inclusive. One of my most memorable experiences whilst working at AIST was the day same-sex marriage became legal in Australia. Almost all AIST staff gathered in the kitchen around the TV, and when the announcement was made, we all cheered, and I remember the CEO turning around and hugging me with pure happiness. I am proud that AIST supported this change, and I think as an association, we should promote being LGBTI inclusive. A simple way of doing this could be to add that AIST is LGBTI inclusive onto our website and our job ads, and also celebrating things such as Gay Pride Week. Another fun way to increase diversity could be to hold an annual My Food Day. There are a variety of cultures represented at AIST, so it would be great to find different ways to embrace and encourage inclusion. As I said, a simple and fun way of doing this could be to host an annual staff lunch, giving employees the opportunity to bring a food or snack and asking them to share the story behind the dish. The dish could be a family recipe, or it could just be a food that person has discovered whilst traveling, or just simply their favorite cuisine. Another great way to increase diversity is to partner up with not-for-profit organisations. AIST has recently partnered with the Literacy for Life Foundation, who are an Aboriginal-run charity training Aboriginal people to bring literacy to their communities. As the events team, it would be a great initiative to arrange donations to the Literacy for Life Foundation on each speaker's behalf in lieu of a speaker gift. I'm also hoping to start another initiative which allows delegates to donate $5 to the Literacy for Life Foundation when booking an event registration. And finally, AIST can conduct a survey each year to offer employees the opportunity to provide honest feedback around diversity in the workplace and ways that it could be improved. The survey could be anonymous, so to provide a safe space for employees to share their thoughts and feelings. Hopefully this will help management see what initiatives are working and highlight any areas of improvement. Okay, now that we've covered diversity in the workplace, I want to provide an overview of cross-cultural communication. Cross-cultural communication is the process of recognizing both differences and similarities among cultural groups in order to effectively engage within a given context. As American financier and statesman Bernard Birch said, we didn't all come over on the same ship, but we're all in the same boat. The need for cross-cultural communication in a diverse workplace is extremely important, as it enables people from different backgrounds to adjust and improve their communication. Having clear, effective communication between colleagues, managers, and executives creates an equal opportunity workplace, which tends to empower employees to assist them to excel. To help explain the concept of cross-cultural communication, I'll read an anecdote from a book called The Culture Map, written by Erin Meyer, a professor at the French Business School in Sayed. Okay, so this is the antidote. After receiving a positive performance review, Sabine, a French woman on a 2-year assignment in Chicago, thought work was going well, so much so that she wanted to extend her stay in the States. Meanwhile, her boss, Jake, had a very different impression. He thought Sabine wasn't working out at all. Although she had boundless energy and enthusiasm, her work was often sloppy. He had talked to her about it, but she seemed oblivious. Unless her performance improved, he would have to let her go. So how is it that two people have such different perspectives on the same situation? According to Erin Meyer, it comes down to cross-cultural miscommunication. I thought this would be a good example, seeing as American and Australian cultures are quite similar. Australian managers often focus on the positives and play down the negatives while providing feedback. We often encourage language so that the negative feedback, we often use encouraging language so that the negative feedback does not seem so harsh. Looking back at the example of Jake and Sabine, if they had a better understanding of these cultural issues, they may have had a better chance of understanding each other. If Jake was more direct with Sabine, this may have helped deliver the message more clearly, and Sabine may have tried to improve her work. And being French, she would have been more accustomed to the direct feedback and less likely to take offence. So now that you have a bit of an understanding of what cross-cultural communication is, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. It can be difficult to understand how to effectively communicate with individuals from diverse backgrounds or with people who speak different languages. It's not uncommon for issues to arise like that of the situation between Sabine and her manager, Jake. Although these challenges may be common, they can often be easily solved by implementing a cross-cultural strategy. So, how do you communicate with people from diverse backgrounds? I'm going to cover 5 strategies that should help cross-cultural communication. 1, understanding cultural diversity. When dealing with people from diverse backgrounds, there are certain cultural differences that should be considered to ensure communication is effective as possible. This should usually start with understanding that the sender and receiver of the message are from different backgrounds. People need to have a basic understanding of cultural diversity and learn how to communicate with people whose first language or language of choice does not match our own. Secondly, developing awareness of individual cultures. Once you understand that you're dealing with someone from a diverse background, you need to look more specifically at their culture. Although having a basic understanding of culture diversity is a great start, diving a little deeper and learning basics about a certain culture and their language is important. This is necessary even for the basic level of understanding required to engage in appropriate greetings and physical contact, which can be a tricky area interculturally. For example, in Australia, kissing a co-worker would not be considered appropriate. However, a kiss on each cheek in Paris is acceptable. A firm handshake may be acceptable in Australia, however, may not be in other countries. Employees who are required to cross-communicate need to understand that a person's reaction or their behaviours are often culturally driven. And then while they may not match our own, they're actually culturally appropriate to that person's country. This comes into play for AIST events team when working with international speakers. It is important that we are aware and considerate of the speakers' time zones, the different holidays they may observe, and their work hours. We may also have to consider things such as email etiquette. Some countries consider emails to be more formal, like a business letter, where other countries and cultures prefer emails to be more casual. Okay, number 3, mutual acceptance. If employees will be working with diverse cultures, it is important for them to have a mutual acceptance and understanding of the changes. This can be done by simply sharing some information to educate team members. For example, when working with speakers from Europe, they will be in a different time zone, so we should expect a delay on email replies. We might have to organise phone calls at unusual hours to suit all parties. When working on AIST's Global Dialogue in 2020, I was working with committee members from Canada, the Netherlands, and London. This meant that I had to organise committee meetings at 6 a.m. Melbourne time, which was 3 p.m. in Canada and 8 p.m. in the Netherlands. Although these calls were often taking place outside usual working hours, all committee members were aware of the different time zones, and there was a mutual acceptance that the chosen time was the best outcome for all parties. Okay, number 4, keep it simple. For those of us who are native English speakers, it is fortunate that English has become the most common spoken language in the world. But it is important to remember that although many business people speak English, if it's not their native language, they are often much more limited. When you communicate cross-culturally, make particular efforts to keep your communication clear, simple, and unambiguous. And finally, get help if you need it. If you are presented with language barriers at any stage of cross-cultural communication, it may be in everyone's best interest to employ a reliable, experienced translator. Employing a translator will assist in recognizing cultural and communication differences, which could otherwise hinder the communication process. Okay, now that I've looked at some different strategies to help with cross-cultural communication, I wanted to take you through the protocols we plan to put in place for the AIST events team moving forward. Protocols play a key role in communication. Although many members of AIST have previously experienced experienced working with international stakeholders, and the AIS team will experience an increase. Sorry, the AIS team will now experience an increased need for cross-cultural communication due to the coronavirus pandemic, dealing with more international speakers, sponsors, delegates, and so on. Prior to COVID-19, senior event staff were responsible for managing AIST's international events. However, the coronavirus pandemic has changed the way we run our events. And in the future, it is likely that AIST events that were predominantly face-to-face will become hybrid events, being a cross between face-to-face and virtual. Holding hybrid events means AIST will be working with speakers to deliver conference sessions using methods such as live streaming or pre-recording the sessions. Using these methods means AIST will no longer have to cover the cost of speaker travel. These reduced costs will also lead to more international speakers being invited to present across all of our events, which means all of the events team will start to engage with international speakers and stakeholders on a more regular basis. For this reason, we will be asking the events team to follow the following 4 protocols when communicating verbally and non-verbally with colleagues and international stakeholders from diverse backgrounds. 1, maintain etiquette. Before you communicate with someone from a diverse background, it is important to research their culture to determine any specific etiquette around the way they communicate. For example, the need to reverse family and given names in China, or the use of san in Japan. In some cultures, greetings are shown with a bow instead of a handshake. In other cultures, direct eye contact is deemed impolite, whereas in some places it is a sign of honesty and trust. If you are aware of the communication norms, you will have more understanding of the physical and verbal communication cues that may differ from what you are used to. Protocol 2, avoid slang. When English is not your first language, it can be difficult to understand English slang and sayings. The person may understand the words being said, but often the context or meaning is lost, so it is best to avoid slang in order to avoid confusing or offending them. 3, speak slowly. When you are part of a cross-cultural situation, it is best to slow down your usual conversation speed. Controlling your pace will help you pronounce words and speak clearly. In order to give your listener the time to translate what you're saying, it is helpful to break sentences into short sections. However, be careful not to slow down to a pace that may come across patronizing. If you're finding it difficult in keeping up or understanding the person you're speaking to, it is okay to politely ask them to slow down. And finally, protocol 4, be careful with humor. It is usually safer to avoid using humor unless you know the receiver will understand the joke and won't be offended. Jokes do not tend to translate well, and in some cultures, it is not acceptable to tell jokes in a business environment. Okay, so our final topic for today is negotiation strategies to assist in cross-cultural communication. I wanted to explore some strategies to help in the negotiation process when you are in cross-cultural situations. There can be many benefits to a company negotiating across cultural barriers. However, the process can be daunting, adding an entirely new level of challenges such as language barriers, appropriate dress code, differences in body language, etc. The following 5 strategies can help you better understand how to negotiate in cross-cultural situations. 1, negotiate important issues separately. Negotiation is the process of discussing something with someone in order to reach an agreement. Although the same rules apply when negotiating in cross-cultural situations, sometimes it is best to break the issues down and negotiate them separately so that it is not overwhelming for the parties involved. 2, adapt to new processes. It is essential to embrace your counterpart's way of doing business, especially when you are visiting their country. For example, find out if you should shake their hand, hug, or bow when greeting them. Will you need to prepare to engage in small talk or just get straight to business? 3, build bridges across cultures. Although there are bound to be some barriers to overcome during the negotiation process, it can be helpful to look for ways to bridge the 2 cultures. Look for similarities that you may possess, such as family customs, family heritage, common interests, or shared experiences. 4, break bread together. Not all cultures like to get down to business. Some like to include a social element, such as having dinner and drinks or watching a cultural dance before discussing business. Engaging in social interactions can be an important part of creating long-lasting deals and relationships. And finally, 5, listen to your interpreter. Although it is an advantage to speak the same language as your counterpart, it can also cause issues if the message is not being received as clearly as thought, and misunderstandings can take place. It is often very helpful to have trusted interpreters as part of the negotiation process, as they can provide valuable information and interpret certain situations, helping come to an agreement. And finally, remember, you can still say no. Although the above strategies may help to develop relationships and increase the likelihood of coming to a mutual agreement, you still have the right to say no. There can be additional pressure to reach a deal when so much effort is involved dealing with an international counterpart. But a polite and respectful "not now" can often lead to unexpected agreements in the future. Okay, so in conclusion, this training has taken place because we had identified AIST's opportunity to improve diversity and cross-cultural communication in the workplace. By increasing AIST's diversity, we will also increase innovation, creative thinking, and bring different perspectives when trying to solve problems. AIST has the opportunity to increase diversity by implementing some of the initiatives we have discussed today, such as continuing to improve gender equality in our conferences and events, the introduction of blind screenings in the recruitment process, promoting the association as LGBTI inclusive, strengthening our partnerships with the not-for-profit organisation Literacy for Life Foundation, holding events such as My Food Days to embrace and encourage inclusion, and by introducing surveys so employees are able to provide honest feedback around diversity in the workplace and ways it could be improved. And if diversity is important to the association, then there is also a need for employees to develop cross-cultural communication skills so that they can effectively communicate with people from diverse backgrounds. The AIST events team will achieve this by following 4 protocols, including 1, maintaining etiquette, such as learning if you should greet international speakers with a bow or handshake. 2, avoiding slang, as often the context or meaning of what is being said is lost and can result in confusion or causing offense. 3, speaking slowly and allowing time for your counterpart to translate what's being said. And 4, taking care when using humor, as jokes don't translate well and means that they are often best to avoid humor altogether. And finally, as all of the AIST events team will now be dealing with international speakers, venues, sponsors, and other stakeholders going forward, there are strategies that should be considered before engaging in the negotiations. 1, negotiating important issues separately, breaking down the issues and negotiating them one by one. Adapting to new processes, embracing your counterpart's way of doing business, i.e. bowing when greeting. Build bridges across cultures. Look for cultural similarities such as family customs or common interests. Break bread together, including social aspects and not always getting straight down to business. And finally, listen to your interpreter and let them help you come to an agreement. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's training on cross-cultural communication. I hope you will all now find it easier to build stronger relationships and gain a better understanding of how to communicate and negotiate with people from different backgrounds. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.